down as a process flow. So, and I took an example of a software development team. If you imagine a software development team that is doing basically has different people with different specializations working on the same project. So we are basically looking at how the work flows between them. Right. So if you look here, basically the process says when there's a new ticket. So a ticket in this case can be a new task or a new feature. It will come in, and the first thing that is required, because this is a software development project, so the first thing is designing the screens, right? And that would be obviously the designers, and they will go through their own process and check. So is the design approved? If not, they will go and make further changes until it is agreed that it can move to development, right? And then when it moves to development, obviously the relevant people within the dev team need to be notified, and then the person who picks it up has to start working on that, implementing what was on the design. And in the process of that, once they've done the implementation, they can go and request a review from their colleague. And if that is approved, then they close the ticket on their side. And then this process, then QA needs to be notified that there's something that's ready for you to develop, to test, right? And then this is now with the QA team. So they'll test it and check, does it pass QA? If not, they reopen it, goes back to the person that was working on it, etc. If it passed QA, it notifies ops or systems administrators that will go ahead and make sure that all the sort of the integration tests and all relevant checks are passing before they can then go ahead and deploy, right? So as the last step on the process, once something is deployed, we would like to obviously add it to the change log for our product. And then, yeah, basically the process is done. And on a regular interval or occasionally, a customer or the client is notified of the progress being made, but this could be a separate process, right? So this is like, yeah, so it is a fictitious process, but I'm pretty sure it represents a lot of real life scenarios that you would come across. So this is the starting point as, excuse me, as the process flow. Obviously, it's highly simplified, so please bear with me on this. So once this is done, right, so then the next point is now to demonstrate how this has been implemented on Lepsta, right? So I've created this workspace called Soft, and there's a couple of collections in there, and all of these collections are supposed to represent the role players as per that diagram. So you have design, you have development, you have QA, operations, and changelog, right? So the idea here, by the way, I have other someone else logged in here who's playing a different role. As you can see, they would see a different number of collections based on the role that they're playing. But so as per the diagram, right, we said the first thing, a ticket comes in, or a new feature request, or an approved feature request is coming in. So let's say a new feature is, excuse me, building a user management, let's say facility on the product, right? So, well, you assign it to someone, let's say, just assign it to me on this one, let's say it's relatively high, and you create it, right? The first thing that happens, because it lands in the design, in the design collection, is that by default, it'll create a substream that says provide designs for the front end developers. And so as someone who is working on this, right, then I can go and say, all right, mark this as started, I'm starting to work on this, and you can do the design. Obviously, that's an offline activity. And then ultimately, I will go and then say, right, let me upload the finished design. Anytime now, right? Okay, so that's good, right? And I can say, all right, so this is done. And obviously, during this process, I would have, asked someone, a reviewer, and said, all right, so maybe this person, they're not part of the design team. So if I have members who are part of the design team, I can then invite them as reviewers as part of the process to review the design. And let's assume that everything has been approved, right? Excuse me. So we go and mark it as done, right? And if I hit refresh on this, it disappears from the design collection, right? So, and it's disappearing because it's in transit. It's moving on to the next team, right? And as per the diagram, the next team, the handoff goes to development. So then if I go into development and hit refresh here, so it's been recycled, it comes back into development and it enters from the very beginning. So you can see the status has changed, still the same item. And you can see the progress that's been made, that you can know as a developer, there's already a design available for me before you even open it, because it says design and it says it's done, right? Which means it's ready for development. So, and as developers, you see, this is one of the developers here. They can get a notification that, someone's assigned work to them. And, if they are ready, they can just click. Right. So because I clicked start now, obviously it's already started. So I would go on the coding side, obviously, whatever is required. Again, I did not include that into the scope, but imagine that is also another offline process. And at some point, I may need to add reviewers, and these are the people that have access to this collection. So I can add that one, and they can be notified, review. But let's assume that everything with this project is going well and things are getting done. Then I can basically do the same thing here where I mark the whole thing as done, right? Again, if I now go back to the process, right, and I refresh here, you'll see that our done item has moved along. It's no longer in the scope of this of this team. So because we said after it's approved, it needs to go to QA, right? So we go into QA, and there it is, right? And you can see the progress is showing as we move along the process, and everyone involved can see where it's been, right? And the best thing about doing it this way as well is that as someone who is in QA, your work is accounted for, and so is someone in dev, so is someone in design. So it's clearly visible from the streams that were generated that you were part of this project or you were part of this task, right? So again, you can go into QA. Let's assume that you have a way of testing this. You test it out, and again, I mean, the workflow is the same. These things don't always happen instantly. This could take a while. So while you're doing this, excuse me, you can obviously do what you need to do, the checks that you need to perform, but ultimately you would either push it back to development or you mark it as done, and then yeah, that's basically your part of the process. So your plate is clean now because it's moved on to someone else. And as per our process again, you see that after QA, it goes to ops, who are the people responsible for deployments and such. So let's go to operations. By the way, so imagine obviously that it's not one person jumping between these things. These are different people sitting even in different time zones. But they would have gotten a notification whenever whenever something is coming into their scope, right? So excuse me. So now it says, all right, so the next pending thing is in ops. So someone in operations would start looking into this. So the ops people will deal with the deployments, making sure that the CI is passing. The developers would probably have done that as well. But as someone in operations, you still need to make sure that the builds are passing, and therefore you can go and deploy. So, and same story even here. Once that part is done, then basically it's out of your hands as well once you've completed the deployment. So where is it going now? According to our process, we are done. So it goes to the change log, and then it's marked as done. So, and if you switch to the change log, you can see there it is on the change log. And obviously, so this is the custom view for the change log, and you could give the change access. You could give access to the change log to your customers, so that maybe this is what they are seeing. They don't need to worry about all the details in terms of where this has been. They're not part of that entire process. They just want to see what's been delivered. But also at the same time that this was moved to the change log, a notification would have been fired off to the customer. So just to verify, I'm using Mailinator here. And obviously this is a public inbox, so there's other people testing different things. But you can see here's one coming from us saying we've completed some work. Then when you open it, you can see dear Mr. Customer, here check the stuff that we completed this week, and here's how it goes. Obviously, it may not be a good idea to do this like immediately or instantly, right? Maybe you want to chunk this up so that you are sending this update once every Friday. Or once every 2 weeks, depends on what your agreement is with your customer. But this is how the process works, right? So basically, this maps out an end-to-end process that sort of maps how this company works and how they are doing things. And now it's entirely automated, because prior to this, you would have imagined that as soon as this one is done, they need to notify that other one, yes, here's the design, let me email it to you, or what have you. So all of these things are major inconvenience if people are working across time zones and people are working from different countries and in the different times, etc. So this being a remote intervention ensures that these things are happening automatically, and you do your part, you do what's on your plate, what is your responsibility, and it's passed along to someone else. And if for any reason you want to obviously stay abreast with how these things are, these tasks or this work is progressing, you can always create a view for it, but that's not in the scope of this little demo. What I just want to show is how this whole thing is put together. But before that, I just want to say that this may work for a company that's working on one big project, or you could have a company that's working on multiple projects. This can still work, but what you would need to do, I think, is you need to create a collection for that project, and these become sub-collections for that project. And I think that in that case, it would work better. But that being said, how this was put together is, so these are the action views that I used. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 action views to automate that entire workflow. And